Yeah, I don't know why it's so rewarding. One of the things that is so rewarding is that I get the feeling I already get a reward from the idea that I can later look this up and otherwise would forget. So, for example, this is many people always seem to not really like audiobooks as much as I do.
Mm.
One of the reasons I like audiobooks so much is because, first of all, to get into a flow state, which is something we'll touch upon in the podcast itself, I guess. When I want to get into a flow state, a walk for me just really does the trick. And then I'll listen to an audiobook, but I can take notes while listening to the audiobook.
How do you do that? Because I'm struggling with the same problem.
Right. Well, honestly, that's not nothing crazy. I literally just I pause the audiobook and I just take a note and then I continue the
On your phone.
audiobook. Yeah,
Yeah, for me that disrupts the flow.
really.
Yeah, to get my phone out to be on my phone, I hate that. So I always have like a little notebook and a pen, and I write my notes in just manually.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do them. I put them directly in my second brain,
Mm.
and then I process the notes of that book later. I still have a lot of books to process because I just have been too lazy with that. But then I'll process those into my research, like my research folder of my notes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could put certain things like thoughts while I'm processing my notes. I could put those into Zettelkasten, and that's how I use books to develop new thoughts. But I can't really get around. I mean, if you're walking, you need to use your phone to take notes. Sometimes I take my iPad with me so I can type faster. But
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm experimenting with like voice notes right now, an app. I think it's called Air. I forgot. But I often I'm listening to a podcast or an audiobook and I want to take a note,
right,
and I just don't have my my notebook at hand.
right,
Then I'm like, okay, how do I take a note?
yeah. So, but does that work for you to do it by audio?
Not really yet because it's not in my system. It's not within my my flow.
I'm really curious to see how it works out because it's not my flow, it's not my habit. I find it supremely awkward to like use voice notes. I've tried it with Otter. 'Cause this app, I mean, you know it. I've used it for a while. I thought it was a great idea. I literally even tried to do my reflections on the computer using the dictation feature in Apple in OS X. I thought it was an amazing idea, but it just doesn't stick. It's too counterintuitive to do these things by voice, even though talking technically is faster. But one thing I love about the fact that I do interrupt my flow and write something in my second brain, I get into a new flow state, which is a back and forth flow state of receiving and synthesizing. So I'm really getting into the story because I need similar to the feeling you get when you speed read, which I've tried to do a little bit more the last weeks and months because of our podcast episode. You really have to pay attention because you know you're going to take a note. So you have to be able to synthesize it because otherwise you notice that it's confronting that oftentimes I don't listen well enough, so I need to actually go back.
Oh, I have that all the time.
Right. Okay.
Like, I don't mind to interrupt the flow of note taking. I actually love that.
Oh.
It was just more when you're walking, for instance, or when you're at the gym. You're listening to a podcast or an audiobook. Then how do you take a note? Like I don't always. Almost all the time I have my notebook at hand, but
Right.
just not. It's not for a walk. It's not optimal.
True. No, yeah, I agree with that. I'm just one of those annoying people that will just, in the middle of the sidewalk, stand still without thinking about others and start taking notes on my phone.
Yeah, these are really first world problems, I think.
Yeah.
How can we take a note when walking? Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I think the aim for this episode, it was a nice little introduction there.
For sure.
Is the second brain.
Yeah.
What a second brain is and how we use that. We both have our own system for a second brain, and in later videos, then we will show our own second brain individually. And how we have set that up, which software we use, and how it enhances our life and the capacity for personal knowledge management.
Yeah.
So I think that this should be like a short episode, just a small introduction. But we both really love the concept of a second brain. So I think we should just first maybe quickly elaborate what a second brain is. How do you define that?
Sure. Yeah. I'm happy to give it an attempt. I find it difficult. I was thinking about this before the episode, and it's one of those things that once you are into it, it seems obvious, but then again, it's hard to really explain. But I think in essence, what it means is you use a structure inside of a note-taking app to make sure that you can use information more efficiently so that it doesn't work against you. So you're not trying to use your brain, which I think you already beautifully put before. You're not using your brain for what it's not naturally good at, which is organizing information. Our brain is pretty good at recognizing and like seeing patterns and stuff like this, but recalling and structuring stuff is not really a human superpower.
And storing.
And storing, exactly, yeah. So you try to get around that by using what technology is good at, which is exactly this, and using modern note-taking apps, and then kind of these systems that help you classify your information in terms of like a project or just notes of books that might belong somewhere else. You know, like where do you put certain types of information? And using these systems, they make you a more efficient human.
Yeah, but it's also more than that, because you just showed me now your second brain setup, and you also have your crypto exchanges, like the current fees in there.
Right.
So it's like some kind of a live dashboard.
Yeah, yeah, I call it the cockpit. Yeah, it's like, in a way, I guess, depending on how deep you go, right? Because some people just use, I don't know, something like Evernote, which is maybe more oriented towards just note taking. Something like Notion or what I use, Obsidian. These are two apps. They allow you to do a little bit more of like real solid dashboarding. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I also I call it the command center.
Right.
Based on like a guy I follow on YouTube. August Bradley is his name.
Right.
But we both have like these thought leaders in the second brain community. I'm not sure if it was Thiago Forte that first coined the term, or like
I think so.
second brain.
I think it's a friend of mine, a really good friend, Ben Bradbury, who partly put me onto this whole, this whole path. Basically, he did the second brain course, which was created by Thiago Forte. So I think
okay.
by his course kind of coined this whole second brain idea.
All right. So basically, it is a structure in a digital environment which you use in order to store information, to give guidance in your daily life, to some kind of a personal assistant, maybe.
Yeah, I think to be honest, like the best for people that have never done something like this, I guess the best explanation I personally could give is a calendar, because everyone has probably used a digital calendar where you already get into the question, how do I organize the fact that I have certain appointments, or sometimes appointments that I have to be at every week, and you already get in this thing like, how do I structure some of my information? And then at some point, I don't know if you remember, if you've ever had this, but you start abusing the calendar to do stuff that it's not supposed to do. And then you start realizing that it actually doesn't really work. And then maybe you'll get into the note-taking system. But I think the first best thing in terms of digital information management we have is a digital calendar. That's like the first best example, simplest example I can give that is accessible to everyone that's not already taking notes.
Yeah, basically, like we are already, like everyone almost is using a second brain, in the sense that they have a smartphone, or an iPhone or an Android, whatever.
Yeah.
They use that to outsource the capacity for memory. So
yeah,
if you put your, I don't know, birthdays of friends into your calendar, then you already don't have to remind it yourself. You use a second brain in essence.
Good point. Yeah, that's a perfect example. The birthdays in the calendar. That's a second brain thing. I put the birthdays of my friends in a calendar still, by the way. But I have a list of some people what they like to eat in my second brain. Because
exactly.
If I buy something for them, I'm at the grocery store. Obviously, I absolutely have no idea what you like to eat, but I'll try to look it up in my second brain.
I don't like to eat.
Oh, you only fast. Never mind. That's why the list is empty in your name.
It's empty, but I was looking for an icon for fasting yesterday.
Right.
Like an empty plate. But anyway, it's a digital environment which you use to store information and but basically anything else. So a calendar is just like first layer. And we go deeper with that. We use it for tasks. We use it for areas, projects, our knowledge databases, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, reflections, all of this.
Yeah.
People, yeah.
Exactly. So for me, that gives me, like, why I do that is because it frees me in daily life to do more what I'm good at, and that is intuitive thought and being creative. Pattern recognition you just touched upon. That's what I like to do, and I don't want to use my brain, to store information, to have things in there like, hey, I need to do this, I need to do that. And So for me, the main reason is just overview and freedom, I would say.
Overview and freedom. Yeah, I love that. That's a good point. The freedom, especially, I can
Yeah.
I really recognize this. I think, yeah, a problem that, on top of the fact that we use technology to aid our brain, I think a nice thing to mention here is once we acknowledge, we need technology to aid our brain in doing exactly what you just said, then what is a recognizable experience everyone might have gone through that you could solve with a second brain, next to knowing what someone likes to eat or stuff like this or doing reflections, is this is a personal experience, but I guess everyone has had this that has studied in this day and age, like in our generation, organizing study work. I remember when I opened my Google Drive the first time, like years back, and I thought like, yes, I'm gonna create this amazing structure. I'm gonna separate it like this, and I'll be able to find everything perfectly, and all these PDFs of books that I have, and you name it, and papers, and all of this. I'm gonna organize in such a way that I'm like on steroids. And within a week, I absolutely failed. I couldn't find shit.
Very recognizable.
Yeah, and then this second brain, like the P.A.R.A method that we use, which is also created by Tiago Forte. P.A.R.A is a system to help you organize your information into the right categories. And one of the ideas behind this system, which I really like, is you have the same structure in every app. So Google Drive, you have certain folders, and you'll have a very similar, if not equal, structure in other apps, meaning that you intuitively will find everything back. And this structure is I think, really, it touches upon one of the added benefits of having a second brain really as like a tool to use, like a really well maintained, consciously organized second brain, is that you can basically organize all the information in your life in such a way that you can intuitively navigate it, and that it becomes more or less your own personal library of your own information. I think that's like the next level. Right. So first you start with, with basic stuff like, okay, you put people's birthday in a calendar. And then at some point you'll start organizing some of the PDFs that you have in a basic structure. And then at some point you'll start organizing some notes, and maybe at some point some tasks, and then it becomes reflections, and on and on and on. I think this might be a really nice path to slowly get used to second braining, because it's a long one. But I think, I think that's worth mentioning, is that you can get a lot of levels deep, basically, in this whole thing.
Yeah, I think like I was thinking, that's great. Dave Allen, like the creator of Getting Things Done.
Yeah.
I think his tagline is, the life to stress-free productivity, and
Right.
really the stress-free part. For me, that is the key, because I get really stressed and anxious when there's a lot of data around, which I don't know where things are. I don't have an overview. I don't have oversight,
Yeah.
and I don't have control. So it's a little bit of a control issue. For me, that I am at my best when I know, those things, the sensory data, around me, that's fixed. I know where things are getting done. I can be optimal right now. I think so. This, for me, it's very personal and based on my personality type. For you, that's quite different, right?
Yeah, that's a good highlight. There's a pretty big difference between personalities and the way they like to
Yeah.
organize the second brain, for sure. Where, for me, funny enough, I can actually thrive pretty well on this, well, intuitive as well, but on chaos. So in my world, where I want to look up information, I don't actually use the structure of my folders, for example, as much as I just use a search feature. So for me, note taking and organizing information is more about, I want to be able to put it in, and I want to have something like I want to have a very easy experience getting it back, but I don't have any anxiety whatsoever if there is not a structure in my head. The thing that gives me joy in this whole thing is that I can just put it in there, and I can forget, and I know that I'll be able to find it because it's usually sorted on date or something like this. And that's all I need. I don't need any strict structure in that sense, even though the only reason I do have a strict structure, is that because of my tendency to collect a lot of information, it's just too much. So I need structure to kind of even get to the point that I can use the information I collect.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I use the structure. But
Yeah, for
I'm
me,
more chaotic.
the search feature is that's secondary, because I use it because it's very efficient and very
Yeah.
fast. but I need to know where things are, because if I don't know, I just have search like Google, then I get crazy.
Right. So you do need. Maybe you can touch a little bit more upon what does it mean to know where things are. So what do you do when you need something out of your second brain? So you go through the whole folder structure, or what should I imagine here?
No, I barely use the folder structure, but
Ah.
the folder structure needs to be clear for my own understanding. Like, how is the complete hierarchy of things, of data, how is that structured? And where do things belong? I see it like as a diagram. And so when I search, I know exactly where I search, in what category.
Hmm.
So it's not scattered around. And with your setup, I think it's just scattered around, and you go for it.
It's certainly more scattered. I would say that it's like I'm walking around like in my own head, and as I walk, I just drop a lot of stuff on the floor,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'll end up walking the same circle and then picking it up again and putting it in a different place. But
yeah. Okay.
in the end, the floor is still cluttered.
Yeah, okay.
That's my
In the end, my floor is clear.
right,
I think
exactly.
that's the main difference. But still, the motivations why one should have a second brain, those are can be different, but they will always be like valid, because everyone has a different reason why a second brain would be extremely beneficial for him or her.
Yeah, I think to kind of extract what you've told me about your experiences, that a second brain gives you a sense of calm and a sense of focus and organization. Especially the calm, I guess, is a big one. Whereas for me, it gives me a sensation of creativity, and it gives me a sensation of energy, like a confidence, like an excitement, a motivation, because I get the feeling that I have this kind of superpower
Yeah,
that I'm working on. It's like this power that I'm building. And this is, yeah, I guess we have that similarly, is that we can nerd out so much on these structures and showing each other second brain and
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
for
But
sure.
yeah, so the main thing for me rather is not the calm, but it's the creativity and the inspiration that it gives me.
Yeah, it's both. I think
Uh,
that's secondary, but it's the synergy, the synthesis between ideas that comes through the creation of a second brain. For instance, the Zettel custom setup.
yeah,
That is, of course, that's key, because if it gives me new ideas, new insights, I can link certain patterns or concepts I hadn't linked before. So it's actually beneficial in creating new thought.
yeah,
So it has multiple benefits.
yeah,
It's
for
it's
sure.
not just a comp. It has many benefits for me. So I can actually get excited for that. The weekend, for instance, yesterday I had a day off, just to organize my second brain, just to put data somewhere at where it belongs, and to all the podcasts I read this week, all the notes. I'm writing the notes out in Notion, and I organizing the notes, and then I put it in my Zettelkasten, and I'm creating new ideas. I'm linking new concepts, and that for me is just hyper flow state.
Yeah, it seems like a very normal, like culturally, a logical thing as well that we're doing, right? Because I was reading something in a book around a willpower, and they touched upon the history of the fact that in the past people did not really need a lot of willpower because they didn't have so many distractions.
Yeah, true.
And nowadays we have all of these distractions. It reminds me of the idea that in the past, people would organize their property in their house, right? Because it would be a lot more work. We don't have all these machines like I don't know, a cleaning robot and people that clean for you and dishwashers and all of these things. So the fact, like the feeling of order that we need, the sense of calm, we don't have that as much anymore because so many things are taken out of our hands. On the other hand, what is very chaotic in our lives, as compared to the history, is information. So I think taking a day off, where in the past you might have a Saturday off or like a couple of days off to organize your whole place and your house and all of these things, and maybe take care of the garden. That's not the way we live, but we do need that sensation of organization and calm. I think as a meditative practice even, and a second brain can help you do this because there's just so much information to organize.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I just thought, it just popped into my mind that when you said that, we are already, in a sense, technology, and it's here to, we have to embrace it, because technology is already here. You didn't have this like years back or decades back,
Right.
but we're now in an exponential loop that, things are getting faster and faster, and you need to be able to handle technology. If you cannot handle information, then, you're done.
Yeah.
Especially right now, this is the information age, right? So you need to be able to have a structure in place in order to process information. It will only get worse. So if you're not able to do that, and if you can do it, you can outcompete someone who cannot do it. So I think it's very important to be able to have a systematic approach to information and to knowledge management.
Yeah.
And that's where this really like ties in to the whole systematic mastery approach.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think at the fundament of what we do in terms of systematic mastery, it all revolves around structuring the way we interact with the world and the way we think, the way we organize also our knowledge. The fact that you can do a reflection, for example, is something that you nowadays can do in a second brain. And doing this the smartest way will make you a better human, maybe in terms of your personal relationships. It will make you a better human in terms of your training and all of these things. So there's like a ripple effect, I think, of the second brain. And I think that's the real power. Is it might sound like we're just information organization nerds, but I think in the end, there's a huge ripple effect of being able to do something like this properly.
Yeah, we're also just information organization nerds.
Right. Yeah, that's also true.
Besides that, no, you're definitely right. But okay, so how does this look like? Like it sounds very cool again, and this stuff nice. But for people that have never worked with a second brain,
Right.
how do we use this in daily life?
Okay, yeah, so that's a good point. So next to the fact that we'll host all of these kind of explanation videos of how we organize the second brain and examples and such, I think a really nice thing to highlight is, right, I think an example I could give is aiding your memory. So in my personal life, as someone that does software development or things close to like digital engineering, basically, whenever I have a problem that I have faced a half a year ago, let me use this analogy. You're driving down a road, countryside. You've driven there around a year ago, and you remember there's a fork in the road somewhere. But you don't remember which way you have to go, and your navigation doesn't work. At some point, you made the right decision, so you went for the right way. You come there again, and you have no idea what road to take. You can close your eyes and try to recall. You can close your eyes and try to get back to the decision you made, but it's quite likely you will not be able to remember. If you have something like a second brain, then you can that micro decision is something you would put in your notes because you know for yourself, hey, this is something I need to aid my memory with. You look it up and it's there. And I think this is something, so when you are out of directions and you need to recall something that you're not used to recalling, that's where you use your second brain. And I think an important highlight is that in a second brain, if you're a second brain person, I'm noticing this myself, I start to look at my own memory in a different way. So instead of kind of accepting that there are certain things that I will not remember, I now see this as something that is moldable. I see it like, oh wait, I will probably not be able to remember it. You know what? I'm going to use my second brain to actually remember it. And I think many of the assumptions that we nowadays make is that we're going to forget that anyways, and we don't even try to remember it. But now I see it as something that I can control. I can just put it in my second brain, and I can actually remember, well, most of the things that I do.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like I use it in the exact same way. I track back how I faced a problem, years back, and I've like internalized that within the second brain as well, and now I can use the same approach, and it's hyper efficient.
It's exactly, yeah. It's like you're talking to your past self.
Yeah,
and that's really, really, for reflection and wisdom as well, I think, is a great thing. So this is kind of, yeah, and you all do this with a note-taking app.
That was my next one. Like, is there software? What kind of software do you use for this? What apps?
Right.
Because I know you use a lot of apps. I tend to use only like a few.
Right.
What do you use at the moment?
Yeah, that's that chaos versus order distinction, right? Because for me, like, I have a lot of apps, and I was thinking about this. So for my second brain, I use Obsidian, which it's hard to explain in simple terms, so I'll just use a little bit of non-simple terms, but it's basically just text files. So you just have, on Mac you have Finder, on Windows you have, I think, Explorer. At least you have files and folders. This is my second brain, but Obsidian is just an app that allows me to create nodes very fast, and it allows me to get an overview in terms of a graph. So I'll have these circles and lines between them, and I can navigate these, and that's how I can organize my information. And I've hooked this into my iCloud Drive, so I can use another note-taking app that also works on files and folders, and this syncs to my iCloud Drive, which then syncs back to my Mac, and then lets Obsidian open the most recent version of my whole second brain. And the cool thing here is, for me, as someone that does programming, I can use folders and files very, very easily because programming languages have been dealing with folders and files for I don't know how many years, right? Other apps like Notion, I know you use. You can tell maybe you can tell a little bit about how you use it. Does not offer these files and folders, and for me, as someone that likes to develop stuff, it makes it harder. But you use only Notion, right, for everything.
Almost everything, yeah. Like, so it's very nice, to be honest, to have like all these files. I never thought about it like that. But I use Notion, and Notion is also like it's a free it's free software, and I believe it's until like
Yeah, it's
normal use.
freemium.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
freemium, so you can use it, you just download it. Um, I basically do everything in there. My whole second brain is set up in there. So I have a command center that is just my daily dashboard, which I see my task for the day. I track my habits. I track what time I woke up, how many hours I slept. I track, which supplements I took. I also rate my days in terms of focus, productivity, mood, all these kinds of things. So that's all in there. So I use the whole system for habit tracking. Then I have created a master task list for all my tasks, like across multiple businesses. So let's say for my marketing agency, for Microdose Pro, for this podcast, for more things, I have created like separate databases with tasks in there.
Right.
And these tasks I instantly sync to my daily dashboard, which is filtered only on that day. So I see for that day what I need to do, like my tasks. And I really like that setup because I can then see what needs to be done. I can check it off, and it's done. And I get a really clear structure of that day, how it's going to look like. So that's the dashboard. Then there is I also store my affirmations, my daily affirmations. I store workout routines, stretching routines, all this stuff I store in there. I also use it as a knowledge resource database, people database, basically anything you can imagine that has some aspect of or component of information in there. Basically, I store it there,
Right.
and I can instantly find it. So I have like all these databases. I can filter on topic, or on tag, or on people, and I can instantly find what I'm looking for.
Right.
And all this is combined also then with another concept that we both use, is the Zettelkasten setup. And this is a method to synthesize ideas. So I write notes. I then review the notes on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And then the key concepts there, the key ideas, the core beliefs that I get from these notes, I then put in the Zettelkasten, and I link those to other notes in the Zettelkasten.
Right.
So what that does is that you link IDs that were previously unlinked, so you can form new and better and upgraded IDs in there. So that's a very brief summary, but this is basically what I do inside Notion.
Okay. So all of this is inside one app.
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, I have a slightly different structure. So I do exactly in terms of all the information that I organize. I do the same thing. I have things on people. I have all my weekly. I do a weekly reflection that takes me around half an hour every week. All of this stuff is all stored in my Obsidian database, and I'm still migrating some things from Notion because I also had a Notion second brain. But then I use for habit tracking. I use a different app called Strides. So for me, I'm still looking into a way to kind of tie everything together. To use APIs and program some stuff together so I can have it all in one place. And this is where I'm slowly going. I think most of these apps are relatively new, so they're still developing a lot of new features. So I think those things are kind of we're already the next years we'll probably see many of these apps launching features along these lines, APIs, integrations, whatnot. Notion is also going down this path. I think their APIs slowly starting to take form. It's taking a very long time. Then what I'm wondering is, what is something that you think a second brain should be able to do, but it's not doing yet? So what are you still looking to add to your second brain?
Well, that's a good question. Like, specifically my setup, or just in general?
You personally, yeah. Your setup, no, not necessarily your setup. More, there's something in life that you want to be able to do with your second brain, and you're not doing it yet. It might be difficult, or you haven't thought about it yet.
Perhaps what could be done. I'm not sure when AI develops. Right now, you're still in control. You know, you still have to make the connections.
Right.
But perhaps you can create some kind of like AI. You are into this kind of stuff that, based on your notes on your Zettelkasten, can form or link IDs for you. You know.
Oh, I was thinking about exactly this, I think the other week, where I was going through my Zettelkasten and I was like, why can't I just link words that, and there's an app out there already that does something like this, is it goes through, there's a plugin actually for Obsidian. It goes through a piece of text, so just a paragraph that you've written, and then it will look for every single word in there. It will look for a note that has the name of that word. So, for example, you have a note about podcasts, you have a paragraph there, has a word podcast, and you have a note called podcast. Then it will make that word, podcast, in that paragraph in that note, it will make it a link to automatically to that note. So it's like auto linking. And then I was thinking, well, that's cool, but then what if you use exactly what you're saying? You're using AI
Yeah.
to develop this more semantic. So like you actually look at the meaning behind a word, and then you link other nodes to these words, and then you just create this graph structure that should be possible. Honestly, I think if you have enough information in your second brain already, which I think you have, then at some point it will become increasingly easy to develop an algorithm to do this. Because then you can do something called supervised machine learning. You can forget what that means immediately, but then you can train this algorithm basically based on all the information you already have in there, and you can say, oh, this outcome I like, this outcome I don't like. And by doing that a couple of times, you can train an algorithm to start auto-linking in your second brain. That's actually a really cool idea. Maybe we can...
Yeah, that if that could be done.
I think we can do it.
Hey, but this really ties into what you told me last week about Neuralink.
Right, yeah, the idea, okay, that's pretty epic idea. I mean, it's far-fetched, right, but it would be cool. So you have this human-machine interface, and this is getting like more vague and vague and vague, right? So we're becoming more integrated beings with machines. I'm wearing an Aura ring. I've used smartwatches. We communicate with people. I think many people more over WhatsApp than we do physically. All of these things are just indications that we are merging with technology, and we're developing, or Neuralink rather, is already developing an interface to our own brain. As in, you can literally let a computer directly interface with your brain rather than you using your hands for these things, right? And you can imagine some of the crazy possibilities there. One of the things that is often like dreamed about is that we can do telepathy, so we can understand what someone is experiencing, not by talking, but like really detailed, just simply because of those devices. And one idea that I really like is when you build a second brain, you are more or less representing the structure of your own thoughts, the way you organize your information. That is already reflected in your second brain, right? Everyone's second brain looks different because they have their own preferences, their own personality that's reflected in that second brain. So what if you use something like AI, just in the general term of the word, and then general sense of the word, sorry, and then you use AI to analyze all the information and hook it into this human-machine interface that directly communicates with your brain, and then aids you in remembering stuff. For example, the fork in the road example I gave, right? So you're driving on a road, you don't know what way to go. You've done this a year ago, you don't remember, but using your second brain, it will automatically tell you what to do. And at some point, you can even think further. Well, you can realize that your experiences, things that you are not good at remembering, can be automatically written away to your second brain. So, for example, I listen to an audiobook. Neuralink analyzes my brain as I read. Instead of me taking notes, it will automatically take notes, and it will give me, based on my own thought structure, it will give me new thoughts, because I would have taken notes either way, and it knows that my memory is not good.
Hang on. Does this mean that when you have the connection between Neuralink and your second brain, and it works, it works perfectly,
Yeah.
that if I would put my second brain, I would dump a shitload of information there, I could instantly download that, like Neo in the Matrix?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you would basically literally expand your own mind with computer-like features. But usually when we think about computer-like features, we think about cyborg stuff, right? So just really structured robotic information. But that's really not what we're doing. We're literally expanding the intuitive, creative nature of our brain with our second brain using AI. and a human machine interface that is
Yeah, but
directly.
you can turn it around. You
Yeah,
can train that second brain, and it's linked with you.
exactly. Yeah.
So you upgrade.
Yeah, literally you
But if so,
yourself.
I can hire someone to to work on my second brain, and this will result in me upgrading,
Yeah, I would reckon like
right?
that's a risky thing to do because if I have bad intentions, I'll fuck up your second brain
Okay,
and
but
there.
but it's possible.
Yeah, theoretically it should be
Oh
possible.
fuck, that's insane.
At some point it should be possible. If we can literally like let AI analyze our second brain, all of the information and thoughts that we've had, and we can create a two-way connection. So our own experiences and thoughts get written away into our second brain, and our experiences and thoughts at a later point can be put back into our own brain as a new impulse. Then yeah, we can expand our mind beyond what we can now imagine possible. And I think it's different from being able to search Google with your brain, right? Because that's just you consciously searching, but this is rather an expansion of your own brain. And I think, it begs a lot of ethical and crazy questions, right? Because we know from meditation experiences, we are just impulses. So what now if there's an external device or like an external, I don't know, entity that is giving you impulses? This is very like slippery slope territory, but I think
Sure.
it should be quite amazing if you can turn it on and off.
Yes, for sure. But I'm still thinking of the implications of this what we just discussed. I never thought about it in from this perspective.
Right.
This is quite insane if that could work.
It wouldn't surprise me if in a couple of years, people in and around Silicon Valley or these areas are going to, or already planning to, experiment with this stuff.
Yeah, I do not doubt the fact that we are gonna merge with technology. Like we're already doing that. You're wearing like a ring that tracks everything. This is just the beginning. So yes, we are gonna be like some symbiosis between AI, robots, and human flesh and whatever.
Yeah.
That's not up for debate in my mind. But the fact that we can you can wield it in that manner that's quite revolutionary. That would be insane.
And I
Holy
mean,
fuck.
the cool thing is you can extrapolate this more and more, right? So what if our second brains could communicate?
Yeah.
It-
Holy fuck. Okay, anyway, this is like pure sci-fi talk.
yeah.
We're not gonna dive into this, I think, with our video.
No, we can
Of
do that
course.
another.
At least I don't have a setup like this right now.
No. Maybe
But
next
still, like we are in the beginning phases right now. Like a lot of people are doing this, and I think that this is really key in order to thrive in a digital information age, and that you actually you have to you need to have a second brain if you really want to excel in this area.
100%. Yeah, and I think it's something we, as the Systematic Mastery mission, also want to share with others. And as you said, we're still in the beginning. We're still learning this whole thing. I think one of the things that I've noticed in the both of us is that we're extremely passionate about it. Like one of the first things we usually discuss when we meet up again is how's your second brain doing? I learned this and this and this. So I'm looking forward to develop like new ideas and thoughts that we can then share, new structures even, and maybe new apps to help others develop this kind of information management superpower.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right. I'm thinking, is there anything we should?
I think it might be interesting to give a few references to things that we've already seen and heard. We can put that in the show notes as
Yeah,
well.
sure.
I think
Yeah.
you
So
might-
apps, Obsidian, Notion, Rome is nice. What else do we have? You have like probably a shit ton of apps.
yeah, there's Rome Research. There's Strides that I use. I think Bare Notes is a good like step to start taking notes with if you're just a beginner. And on top of that, it might be worth mentioning Tiago Forte.
Yeah.
You can read
P.A.R.A.
some of his Para
We
exactly.
we just briefly touched upon that.
Yeah, and then there's Zettelkasten, which I think.
Getting things done and perfectly fits in there.
And there's one more book, How to Take Smart Notes. I think that's a really good book. I'm still reading it, but it's all about, well, literally how to take smart notes.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty decent read. I think that's most of the basic information, and we'll get so much deeper.
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
other
This was
videos.
just the first glimpse of what we are able to do.
Exactly. Awesome. I love the fact that we just went from the basics of like a calendar to like human.
That's amazing. Man. I'm still like I'm blown away by the whole fact that I can become Neo.
Yeah, man.
I can just like
I know Kung
download
Fu.
stuff, and then I got it. That yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
we need to explore it.
I'm looking forward to the moment where we get this real scene of you waking up and saying like, I know Kung Fu now.
kind of improve.
That'd be epic.
Great. Okay, man. Great. And yeah, let's catch up soon.
Yep.
Great.
Let's do
Cool.
it.